How's it going, hockey fans? Hope you're all doing well today. Welcome to the Hockey Stop, your source for all hockey news, hockey opinions, and highlight reels. So in this video today, we're going to be talking about the Penguins versus the Canadiens in the qualifying rounds. This is a bit of a preview video to talk about the rosters, expectations, and just what we might be able to see, once hockey starts on August 1st. So we're talking about the team that's 5th in the East and the team that's 12th in the East. And when you look at the rosters and the types of players on each one, you can easily tell which team is where in the standings. So, of course, the Penguins, 5th in the East, they had a record of 40-23 and 6 for a total of 86 points in 69 games. The Canadiens played a couple more games, 71 total, and they had a 31-9 record for 71 points. And yeah, it's pretty crazy to think that there is a 500 team that is, in the playoffs. Of course, they're saying this isn't technically the playoffs, but I'm calling the qualifying rounds the playoffs because it's not regular season hockey. It's a series of best out of 5, and it's elimination, same playoff rules, so it's playoffs to me. So it's interesting to see a team that again was 500 to be in that kind of position. And yeah, I think when you look at the rosters, it very heavily favors the Penguins in most elements except goaltending. And looking at goals for, it was pretty even actually, 224 for the Penguins and 212 for the Canadiens, so it was pretty close, but it distanced itself more definitely for the goals against average. The Penguins only let in 196 goals, definitely more towards the top of the league, whereas the Habs, they let up 221 goals, and definitely quite a bit more. And it's pretty surprising when you think about the goaltending matchups, because I actually think the Canadiens have absolutely the edge in terms of goaltending, despite having a much worse goals against average. And we'll get to the reason why numbers are that way. But yeah, this is a lopsided matchup. Let's look at the Penguins first. So forwards wise, their stars, Crosby, Malkin, that 1-2 punch duo center. It's an incredible combination to have, especially in the playoffs. You want, a couple talented running lines, and when you have two, premier elite centers on your team, you win cups. And the Penguins have with these guys. Of course, they won 3 cups together, and they still got a lot of gas in the tank. They're still superstars in this league, and they're going to be so for quite a time longer. And they're ready for, I think, another big playoff run. I think it's definitely possible for sure. So you got Crosby and Malkin right up front, and this team has a lot of depth too. So wingers-wise, they got, Brian Rust, who I think is actually really underrated. He's having a great season this year. You got Patrick Hornquist, of course, from the James Neal trade from, several years ago. And they acquired more depth through the trade deadline because they were intending to, go for a big run, unlike the Canadiens, because at the time it looked like they're not going to be in the playoffs. So they also reacquired Connor Sherry, a former Penguin who's been with the Sabres for the past, couple seasons. A smaller winger, but he definitely does pack a punch. And they also got Jason Zucker. They were really hot on this guy, and he's also a very solid winger. So this team, they have some star centers, they got some quality wingers, and they even added more depth in their winger section at the trade deadline. So this team is very dangerous offensively. You look at their defensemen, you got, of course, Chris Letang, star defenseman, for many years for this team. But it doesn't stop right there. They got a young Marino who has been very solid, in the season with the Penguins. Very underrated for sure, and I think he has a good future for the Penguins for sure. You got Justin Schultz, not quite to the level that he was, in previous seasons with the Penguins, but still a solid defenseman for sure. You got Dumoulin, who's a big defenseman, definitely more defensively minded, but really solid for sure. You got Ruedel, a bit of a smaller defenseman, but they got a really strong core. I feel like they're pretty sound defensively, and some of them can also definitely provide an offensive punch. So this team screams offense, but they also do have some pretty solid defense at the same time. Then you look at goaltending, Jarry and Murray. I think Jarry's going to be your starter. Murray's had a tough season. Christian Jarry, he's definitely an underrated goaltender. He's been a backup in the past, but he's definitely been getting, many more starts this season because he's deserved it. He's been playing very well. And yeah, I think he probably is the starter for the Penguins for this upcoming series. Let's look at the Montreal Canadiens and what they have to offer, and it's not quite as much. You look at their forwards, of course, Max Domi, Philip Deneau, very underrated center. And of course, Nick Suzuki, their rookie, the 3 centers they're, mostly rolling on. And then, of course, with wingers, they got some depth, definitely not to the extent of the Penguins. But, first they got Brendan Gallagher, smaller winger, but he's intense. He plays really hard every shift, even a bit physical for his size, and he's a great guy to have in the playoffs for sure. Then you got Jonathan Duran, who had a really disappointing season this year. He's been a disappointment since his draft. People really expect this guy to be a superstar winger, and he just has not been quite that. But he's still a solid depth guy for sure. I think he's pretty good on, I would say, most top sixes for, most teams. And he has potential to, definitely bring it back. I mean, it was just a rough season for him. You got Thomas Tatar, who was blown away expectations, been fantastic for Detroit after, a weak showing for Vegas when he was acquired by them. And then, of course, you got Terry Lehkonen, another solid depth winger. This team does have some depth. It's just not quite as deep as the Penguins, and it's a lot more limited after their stars. Defensively, you got Shea Weber, of course. He's a total stud for this team, and I think age is showing a little bit. He's not quite to the level that he used to be, but still packs a punch. Really hard shot, good defensively, a good leader to have in the playoffs. Of course, you got Jeff Petrie, more of an offensive-minded defenseman. You got Victor Mette, the small defenseman they drafted in 2016, and he's got quite a bit of speed. And I like Victor Mette. He definitely took a long time to get that first career goal, but once he got it, he's been rolling. And that's really their main pieces on defense. Goaltending wise, I absolutely give the edge for them here. You got Carey Price. He has not been quite the same Carey Price as he's been in the past. Last season was not very good for him. This season's been an improvement, but it's still been tough. I think one thing is he's not playing in front of the best defense, and he faces a lot of quality shots. And then you got Lindgren as their backup, but he's not going to be seeing ice time. This is Carey Price's team, and I think especially playoff Carey Price, this guy can definitely take control of the series and really, be one of the big supporters of this team. Looking at the offense, the Penguins just completely outpower the Canadiens. They got a lot of star offense, and that really pushes them ahead. It's really tough for the Canadiens. I really kind of wish they hadn't traded Ilya Kovalchuk. Of course, he's not the same Kovalchuk he was before he retired from the NHL. I'm still salty about that as a Devils fan, but yeah, he hasn't been quite to that level. But ever since getting traded getting acquired after the Kings let him go, he was not a good fit for the Kings. He was a great fit for the Canadiens, and he still has some speed. He's still a power forward. He's not quite to the level, but he fit very well with the Canadiens. And I think he could have been a really quality depth player to make this team a more powerful playoff team. And just looking through it, I mean, this team just doesn't have much depth. I think that's what really makes it tough for them. I don't know if they don't have the depth for the Penguins, and they really acquired some depth during that trade deadline. They also don't have the star power. And the Penguins just kind of dominate in that. They have so many quality forwards. It's really Crosby and Malkin that pushes this team. And, I think the Penguins definitely have better defense because despite not having as good goaltending, their goals against average was a lot better because they got a pretty strong core defense. I think, all the defensemen of their team, provide a pretty solid defensive game in addition to some, chipping in the offense. And I can't say the same thing about the Montreal Canadiens at all, aside from Shea Weber. Their other stars like Jeff Petrie, definitely not that strong defensively, and Victor Mette, definitely not quite. And I don't know, it just, I think, the Penguins, much more star offense, more depth, stronger defense, and Carey Price can't do it all. I like Carey Price, and I think he definitely has the potential to steal a game in the series. That's why I don't think this is a sweep. I think if it wasn't for Carey Price, this is probably a 3-game sweep for the Penguins. But I think because of Carey Price, they can win a game and they can make this a 4-game series. I don't think they take it to 5. And I just see the Penguins kind of steamrolling around the Canadiens for most of the series. But I could definitely see Carey Price at least stealing a game. But a goaltender can't do it all. And I think the Penguins are just way too good of a team. This is one of the few series I just think, I'm very confident the Penguins are going to win. A lot of the series are actually very close, I would say. But this one, I think it's just, 5 in the East versus 12 in the East. I mean, you consider just how much star power this Penguins team has in addition to their trade deadline acquisitions. And of course, the Montreal Canadiens were sellers during the trade deadline, so they weren't able to add, and they really subtracted, including a pretty big piece near the Kovalchuk. Overall, I give this to the Penguins, but it's going to be a fun series to watch, and it's going to be great to watch hockey again. So that is my series preview for Penguins versus Canadiens. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely let me know what you think is going to happen in the comments below. Agree, disagree, we'll see what happens. And I'll be making preview videos like this for every single matchup, all the way up until August 1st. We're going to be seeing some hockey, so definitely subscribe to this channel, hit the notification button, hit a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you August 1st.